Why is South Africa one of the most unequal societies in the world? What will it take to bridge the country's widening equality gap? Can government alone afford to provide free higher education for all? Why is the proportion of successful black graduates on the decline? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Rosalia Whitehead, standing in from Port Sedu. With most universities having commenced with their 2017 academic program, funding for tertiary education is back under the spotlight. On Monday, Statistician General Pali Lehohla made his submission to the Higher Education Fees Commission. On Friday, he released the Living Conditions Survey, whose statistics profile poverty and inequality in South Africa. Dr. Lehohla indicates that the widening inequality gap along racial lines is a huge burden on black households who are working to have a meal on the table and have little room to save. This and the declining success rates among black students at tertiary institutions further compound the challenges faced by university students from poorer families. We are live, therefore you can call us and air your views on the following numbers: 089-110-4210 or 0027-89-110-4210, or tweet us your comments. Our handle is @QuestionTime24. Welcome, Statistician General.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you've become a household name. Why do statistics matter in education, and how do you ensure that these figures remain relevant, or that South Africans appreciate these figures?
Statistics is a conduit of trust. It's a conduit of trust because collected well by professionals, it provides the basis for arguments, and it creates the rational space for removing emotions and all other things. We are not saying that there are no emotions when we argue, but certainly statistics is the benchmark that allows for sober discussions. A legislator in the US says you are entitled to opinions, but you don't have your own facts. And that's what statistics does. You don't have your own facts.
So is it true that numbers never lie? Or do we just use the statement loosely? And isn't it an advantage to have figures really to back up whatever statement you have?
No, you have to have evidence. And then, of course, on the basis of the evidence, you can argue your case. And that evidence, usually in the area of statistics, is quantitative. Even lawyers talk about the balance of probabilities, and you cannot have balance of probabilities unless you talk about numbers.
Okay, well, we have one graphic here. Statistician, would you like to just explain to us what's happening here?
Yes, this is a graphic that shows progressively that South Africa has been improving in terms of completion rates. These are grade 12 in year 2001 up to grade 12 in year 2016. So it shows you that the numbers are increasing. And these are age groups here. Age group 15 up to the population that is having these kinds of qualifications, grade 12. So this gives us the facts show that enrollments are actually increasing in South Africa at grade 12. And then we can go to the next one. That is 1996, 2001, 2011, and 2016. Now this is degrees, people who have degrees in the country by age. And these are the age groups here around 24. And of course, this is about 160. And this here shows what is happening in terms of, that's 2016. And you can see this has declined relative to the previous year.
Okay.
So there's been a drop in absolute numbers. But that's not the point we make. The bigger point we make is about proportions. But here you can see that the number was higher in earlier in 2011. It's lower in 2016. And these are absolute numbers this side.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd just like to refer back to the previous slide. Although it shows that the enrollments increased, does it show us whether those who have completed matric have increased or not?
Well, it does show. I mean, a year in, year out, if you look at this is 1996, 2001, 2011, 2012. So basically, these are numbers. Here is about 600,000. That's what we are talking about here. In 2011, there were about 1996, there were about 200,000, and that increased, and it's almost doubled or grown several times higher at this point. So each graph represents a year.
Okay.
And it's from the census data.
And this is across racial lines?
These are across, this is a summary across racial lines. Similarly, if we go to the next slide, if they roll the next slide. Can we go to the next? Yes, this one.
Okay.
These are now people with degrees.
Right.
See, the green here represents the year before. That's 2011, and this is 2016. So 2016 is slightly lower than 2011. But that's not really the point. But the point that is made by this slide is absolute enrollment has increased.
Okay.
But we'll be looking at proportions soon.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like us to go back to some of the submissions that you made at the Higher Education Fees Commission, where you said that fixing basic education and ensuring support for young pupils will increase the success rate among black students who enter higher education. What are some of the pointers that showed to this?
Well, I mean, if students write the same exam and the university has a particular standard by which it admits students at university, anybody who goes through that process must succeed at university. But if they don't, then it means there are other factors that are affecting their performance at education. And one of those obvious ones are about funding. I mean, does the black student have the money to go to university? They don't. And if they don't get the full complement that makes them able to go through university, they'll not succeed.
Okay, and then you say that policies being implemented to address historical inequality in basic education are probably adequate, but this requires more. So meaning that, you know, having more children enrolled into ECD schools and more children on feeding schemes, has that really given us the kind of uptake that we require?
Well, at a high school level, I mean, the students, children get food there, and enrollment has increased, and the proportion of children who are at school in the school going age has increased dramatically. So the doors of learning have actually opened. But when you go to university, there are major constraints. We can go to the next slide and talk to that, and you'll see what happens there. Now, you see, this slide shows you people who in 1996, when we counted, were alive, and they could have been born before 1930.
Right.
So this is a historical trend. For whites, grade 3 was a given, irrespective of their age. They are 95, they are already, I mean, 90%, they have grade 3. But for blacks at the time, in the 1930s, they didn't. But there was a catch-up, very serious catch-up, and everybody had grade 3 by 1996. So it shows what the historical discriminatory practices generated. This is Indian, this is colored. And you can see where blacks started. And of course, by 1996, everybody had grade 3. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Before we go on to the next, statisticians, we've got Kennedy on the line. Welcome, Kennedy. Please go ahead with your question or comment.
Good day. I think all I wanted to say is I think the government needs to prioritize education and incentivize the best teachers to go and teach in the poor rural areas and provinces, and also provide books in time. Then at least we will be improving the education, and the people will get educated, and we will come out of this unequal society. We will need also a political will and a government which has a vision on how to improve the previously disadvantaged people. And I think we will continue to be unequal as long as we do not improve these poor provinces like Polokwane, KwaZulu-Natal, and Eastern Cape. So there is more need to prioritize education, and the free schools mustn't really be free. Then we do have not quality education. I think we need good quality education for poor provinces so that they can match these Gauteng provinces and Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. Statistician, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, indeed. I mean, he said it all. Without education, the human beings are the only species that I am aware of that change their lives through the brain. And the only fodder to the brain that improves is education. Now, you can look at here, grade 10. You can see the disparity between at grade 3, everybody at grade 3, but grade 10, you already see the disparity. This is the Indian program. Here, around here, Fairwood said, what is the use of teaching Bantu child mathematics when it can't use it in practice? But look at what the Indians did. They actually took on mathematics and did things differently. The blacks and colors continued. The only turning point was around 1994, where you can see the point of inflection moving forward. But for Indians, they had already separated themselves from the colors and Indians. And this is the progression ratio. That is the number of people of a certain age who actually move from one grade to the next. And that's grade 10. You can go to beyond grade 10.
Okay.
Next slide.
All right. Statistician, before we go to break, I just want to ask one question. I mean, you've told us about how, the blacks and colors, only improved after, let's say, from 1990. Was that, could one say that came after the new dispensation?
In large part, you can see that we were disrupted here around 1976. But after 1994, there was the doors of learning opened. But for whites, it had always opened. There were already 70% of whites who are, by 1996, from 1930, 66 years, were already having grade 10 compared to about a smaller number here, about 50% for coloreds and 60% for blacks. Whites were already at about 90 and Indians 90%, close to 100.
I'm afraid time is up for this segment. After the break, we continue with this discussion. Don't go away.
If you ask this pretentious mixologist what is needed to make the ultimate cocktail, she'd say, a thorough knowledge of science. Ooh, right in the face. Yes. If you asked us, we'd say it's less about science and more about, well, chemistry. Tops at Spa. Good spirits, good advice, no rocket science.
Came up with this really cool concept that we both absolutely loved, and it was tennis inspired, sports luxe if you will, but still really edgy, and of course still staying true to who she is as a designer, which I felt was very important.
I am allowing them. If you do not keep your promise, you will never see my children again.
Fiona is a talented chess player. If it wasn't for her community that supported her, she would not have been where she is today. And so it takes a village.
I love working with children. They give you so much joy, and watching them achieve what we ask them to do is really heartening.
Children, Miss Hannigan is gone for good.
Mac Miller, the 24-year-old new school hip-hop international rapper, was shocked when he realized the big following he has in Mzansi. For a 1-hour dose of entertainment, stay tuned on Trends every Saturday at 12.
Welcome back. You are still watching Question Time. You can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial are 089 110 4210. Statistician, you wanted to explain to us what's happening on this graphic.
Yes, of course. This one is, shows we've seen the one with grade 3 where everybody actually has completed grade 3. Here you can see that the disparities continue between now on the one hand whites and Indians, and on the other blacks and colors. Then we can go and see what happens beyond standard 10.
Before we move on, Statistician, I just want us to clarify. So in grade 3, why is that significant? And grade 10, why is that grade significant?
You can see the dropout rates. The levels. The starting point is much lower. The rate of succession in terms of this gradient is slightly lower than what you see here, and the time lag it has taken blacks to almost come closer to grade 10. It's all those things and colors. But the Indians started earlier turning the tide. At exactly 1953, they turned the tide. Whites have always been privileged all the time.
So we've got basically a 40-year gap where other races, Indians and whites, were, you could say, 40 years ahead of colors and
absolutely.
And
that's
blacks.
why, indeed, you've summarized it very well.
We've got Archie on the line. Welcome, Archie. Please go ahead with your question or comment.
Pali
Molo.
Doctor, can you tell me, is there any reason why the statistics only commences at university levels, not at the high school level? And can you tell me why in business circles there's no talk about statistics? I thank you.
Well, we have spoken about it at grade 3 already, and then this is grade 10. You can see the performance, the disparities in performance. But I think what made the discussion more prominent was because of university, the fees must fall arguments and the like. But the data was already there. We can demonstrate that. Statistics must be understood by young children. They play statistics all the time, and they say, play piki piki mabela and sala sala gentleman, I believe of,
yes.
agaga believe of, ins. That's probability.
Right.
You are running with probability there, but we can look at the next slide and look at what the effects have been in education. You see, now here what we are looking at is the state of affairs across Indians, and you can see this dates as far back as 1956. It's almost the same picture at grade 10, but we can go to grade degree now. Next slide. No, the other one.
Okay. Well,
yeah, there is another slide. Move forward. There's a slide that is missing here.
Okay. While we sort out the slides, statisticians, I mean, can we really say that education is going to be the equalizer in an unequal society in South Africa? Is it really a way of dealing with an unequal society in South Africa compared, where we see other races are already much more ahead?
Well, let's go back to the other slide on the Indians. I mean, it is because as Indians caught up with whites, they became more equal because they were now educated and they could actually be working in areas that are, the distribution in income became much more equal.
But what about black people who have other families to support?
Well, amongst blacks, I mean, the inequality is driven by lack of education as well as lack of opportunity, but it's also at a very low level of income. The inequality is at a very low level of inequality and doesn't augur well for social cohesion. We can go to the next 3 slides because I want to get to this one of university. Next one and next one.
Can we go to the next slide?
Next slide. This one.
Okay.
Now, you see, this is where university performance is taking place.
Right.
So if you look at this slide here, you can see this slope here. It's equal to that slope of Indians. It's almost, the slope of whites is a little bit, but at this point, blacks and whites and Indians were performing almost at the same rate of progression. Although blacks started at a much lower level. colors were lower, but they never had a gradient towards university. But if we were to look at technicons, you'll see that gradient going that way. Now, here we are in 1980, about 85.
Right.
Then the graph turns, and whites perform better, and Indians, blacks go this way. We are using the same method to look at this progression, like we did it at high school, at lower primary, where he said, all of us are doing grade 3. We saw how the catching up was. Here, it is not catching up. It is actually degenerating. And this is where the source of problems are.
Okay. Do statistics tell us why the graph is declining?
Well, I mean, the students wouldn't be going for fees must fall if this was not the case. They can see the outcomes of university. They can't complete. And it's very difficult to complete because they don't have the wherewithal. So it's a very wasteful process here. So you start education, but you can't complete your degree.
Statisticians, I mean, you've also said that black Africans had less chance now of succeeding at university. And I mean, this statement also was not taken very well by the higher education minister.
Yes, you can see here. This is the same gradient. This is the same slope of success. This is a divergent slope. This cannot be performing at the same level. Here they are performing at the same level. For every one, you get 1.2 whites. Here, for every one black, you get 6 whites. This is divergent. And this is a time scale here. Are these things performing the same? They are not.
Okay, can we go to the next slide?
Now, the problem is this, that you can see that the unemployment levels of graduates, these are graduates. This is unemployment in the general population. These are graduates. This is 12% unemployment. Here, these are people who come from TVETs. This is 29% unemployment. So close to high school matric unemployment. The question is, how is this thing performing the TVET? In a employment, or rather skill-thirsty country, you don't expect TVETs to be generating this kind of unemployment. Because these are your bricklayers, your painters. So what are the TVETs producing? They are creating people who don't have employable qualifications. And the only thing that is succeeding is a university, because you only have 12% unemployment compared to about 27% unemployment.
Okay, so I mean, do you agree with government that says, you know, we also need to take some of our students to TVET colleges?
Well, which parent will send their children here when the unemployment rates are like this? And which child will go there? It's not attractive. And then, of course, what happens is we clog the university education, and then it can't be funded adequately. So there is no success, but those who succeed face a 12% unemployment. And these are the numbers that, as we look at policy, we must understand.
Oh, Statistician, I wish we could continue with this discussion. I'm afraid time is up. Thank you so much. And that was question time for today. A big thank you to you, my guests, and to you at home for watching.